Hi, it's Vanessa Ugatti, the True Worth expert here, and I'm also author of Amazon bestseller True Worth. And today I'm going to be talking to you about how to charge what you're worth and get it, which is my absolute favorite subject. Now, if you don't know me, I'll just explain very briefly why I am qualified to talk about this subject. So back in 2013, and I won't go into the whole story, I discovered that this was my niche because I so badly suffered from the problem. I was absolutely clueless, hopeless, embarrassed about the whole charging process, and I had no idea how to go about it. So discovering this enormous pain in myself made it very, very clear why I needed to solve the problem, not just for me, but because I wanted to help other people as well. So that's why I'm talking about the subject. Now, I've decided not to use slides because I don't actually think it's necessary for what I talk about. What I want you to be doing is listening and checking in with yourself as to how you feel and what is resonating for you, because it's more or less experiential, if you like, and then you can scribble things down if it's relevant. I think that's probably all I need to say at the beginning. So what I'm going to be doing is looking at who has the problem, what it is, and how to solve it. So if you imagine, the way I look at it is that we're all on a spectrum, and at one end of the spectrum you've got 0, and at the other end of the spectrum you've got 100. And the person at the 0 end is 0% competent and confident in charging what they're worth. And of course, the person at the other end is 100% confident and competent in charging what they're worth all the time. Now, the chances are you don't fit into either end, but you're somewhere along that spectrum. Now, the other thing to consider about this spectrum is that it probably will vary, not only on a minute-by-minute basis, or at least a day-by-day basis, but also depending on who you're talking to. Because you might feel more confident talking to some people and less confident talking to others. So I would suggest that you draw yourself a line if you've got a piece of paper, or if not, do it afterwards, and plot where you think you are. Now, don't spend ages trying to think about it. Go more with a gut reaction, because those gut reactions, that intuition, is likely to be the correct answer for you. And as I said, depending on who you might be thinking about client-wise or prospect-wise, you might pitch yourself in a different place on that line. So I was at 0 many years ago. I'm pretty sure I was there. And now, I wouldn't say 100%, because I think that'd be incredibly arrogant. There are always times when one can think, oh, I'm not entirely sure. But I'm up there in the sort of 80s, I would say. That would be where I'd place myself. If you're as high as the 80s, then you're doing really, really well. So who has this problem? Pretty well everybody, because it's human behavior, as I've just described. But the people who have it really badly fit a profile amazingly. And this is a profile that I've discovered. It's not one of the personality measures that people normally use. And they are always really good at what they do, very conscientious, people pleasers, perfectionists, sensitives, and pretty self-aware. And there might be something else I've missed out, but that's a good 6 characteristics. And of course, perfectionism and people-pleasing and conscientiousness, I should say, tend to go together. Now, people-pleasing and perfectionism are really, really commonplace characteristics. I didn't know that until I started doing this work. They are really, really commonplace. And those people are also really, really lovely people. So the characteristics themselves are not terrible, but when they are applied all the time, it does cause a lot of problems for those people. So what are the problems that not charging what you're worth will actually cause you. They will cause you, of course, to lose money. And the more often you're doing those behaviors, the more money that you're losing. And it isn't really what I would call a sustainable business model. But there are other things that you need to consider about making sure you're charging properly. And they are that if you're not charging properly, it usually means that you're working way too hard, and you're running around like a headless chicken. And you might recognize this in yourself. Now, if you think about what's going on in the world now, we're now in October 2020, so 7 months practically since we first went into lockdown. If you struggled with charging before lockdown, I can guarantee that you'll be having that problem, and it will be probably worse now. And the reason is, of course, that emotions have been increased, they've been heightened over the last few months. So people are scared. Fear is rife, and fear will tend to cause people to drive their prices down. So it's really, really important to understand what the triggers might be for you, what is causing you to do that. Now, one of the other problems that people have when they're not charging properly, because of their nature, etc., and their behaviors, is that they will often attract the sort of people or clients that are what I call PITA clients. Now, PITA actually stands for pain in the, and you'll have to fill in the blank for yourself, because I wouldn't like to say that in a recording. And those sorts of clients, everybody I am sure listening to this will have had some experience of this, where you get a client who doesn't want to pay you very much, but it's that client who wants to ask you millions of questions, spend way too much time of yours, and then be late paying the bill at the end of it. So I encourage all my clients to make sure that they look for appropriate clients, what we call ideal clients or perfect clients. I prefer calling them perfect clients. Not that they're perfect, but they're perfect for me. It's about having the right fit. So people who recognize, for example, for me, people who recognize that they have the problem, and they recognize they've got the problem and it's causing them a lot of challenges in their business and in their life. People who actually want to change, people who are willing to invest in themselves, and people who pay properly and on time. They're all tick boxes for me. So you need to think about what is it that you will tolerate from clients and what won't you tolerate. Because it's funny, along with the charging what you're worth goes taking charge, not just of your business, but of your clients as well. And people who don't charge what they're worth are often being led by the client instead of themselves. So that's a big challenge. So there you have all these challenges that people have with not being able to charge properly. So they're undercharging, they're discounting, they're over-servicing clients, they're working with clients that aren't good for them. And they're like a hamster on the hamster wheel. They're going round and round and round and round and round. And of course, the more they're doing that, the faster they're spinning. They have no idea how to get off. And so they land up probably falling off. That's where the stress comes, the anxiety, the relationships not working very well because their time is so short. And this is where you have to say, this is not going to work. You have to stop and realize that if you continue doing the same things, you're going to get the same results. But there is a way of solving this problem. Before I go into that, how to solve the problem, I want to tell you a quick story about a lovely lady I worked with. And she was an ISO, or still is, an ISO client. And I met her when I was speaking. You know, in the days when we could speak live and go to live events? Yes, it was one of those. And when I was talking, everything I said was resonating so much for her that she came up afterwards and spoke to me, and we landed up working together, and she absolutely ticked all my boxes. So that was no problem for me whatsoever. So she was incredibly good at what she did, but she didn't value herself and she didn't know how good she was. She was working 6.5 days a week on client work, 6.5 days a week. She was married with a teenage child and a dog, and they were not getting a look in. The husband was shouting constantly for her to stop working so much, but she was on that hamster wheel and she didn't know how. What she said to me was, what I want to achieve is maintaining the income that I've got, that I'm earning, but I want to be able to reduce from 6.5 down to 4 days a week, 6.5 days down to 4 days a week. So that seemed like quite a tall order. So we started looking at what was going on. There was a lot going on. She was doing a lot of work that she wasn't billing for, that she hadn't really realized. She was certainly not controlling her clients. They could do everything and anything at any time. She was working with clients that she didn't even want to work with, some of them. So that's the challenge, is that because of the people pleasing, they don't want to upset anybody, and so therefore, or she didn't want to upset anybody, so therefore she was continuing in that vein. But in the 6 months we worked together, we solved all those problems. Her billing was lacking by 25%. We brought it all up. Her days working have come down. She's completely in charge of her business, and now she's actually doing all of her auditing remotely, whereas before she was going into people's offices. And of course, COVID has helped her move along that much further. But if she hadn't actually done the work with me pre-COVID, Lord only knows where she should have been. So now you're probably sitting there saying, Vanessa, will you just get on and tell us what the solution is, please? So I had an epiphany. Well, actually, I was lying in bed. You know, when you're half awake or half asleep, either early in the morning or at night time. And this formula, I call it now the magic formula, appeared in my mind. And as soon as I saw it, I knew it was correct. I knew it was right. And so if you've got your pen and paper, you can write this down. The formula goes like this: UV plus CV plus CD equals CW. And I'm not going to play around because we don't have a lot of time, but the UV stands for understanding your value. And understanding your value is absolutely the foundation and the key to being able to charge what you're worth. Because if you don't understand your value, what happens is you're thinking about price, you're focused on price, and you get scared. And because you don't understand your value and you focus on price, in a way, you're projecting that onto your clients. So that's where they're coming from. So you have to learn how to understand your value. So to give you a clue, I need to just check what the time is. To give you a clue, you need to think about your expertise and perhaps how long you've been doing whatever you've been doing, and the fact that you get results for your clients. Think about the results even that you get for your clients. And of course, if you get fantastic results from your clients, it's not just by magic, it's because you've put the work in before. You've got the qualifications or the experience to be able to do that. So I think it's good to get together with somebody else and for you to brainstorm each other's value, because your value is unconscious. And because it's unconscious, or your expertise, same thing, is unconscious. And because it's unconscious, you don't consciously think about it. So when you do something of your expertise, to you it's easy because you've been doing it a long time. So I liken this to driving a car. So if you've been driving a car for a number of years, everybody in the world will have had the following experience. You get in your car, you go on a journey. It's one that you've done many times before. You get to your destination and you've completely forgotten the journey. You don't have any memory of it. That's because your unconscious mind was driving for you. So you were called unconsciously competent in driving. And it's the same thing with your expertise. And we absolutely have to have the unconscious mind. It does loads of stuff for us, but it also causes a problem, because at the moment you're unconsciously competent, what it means is that you devalue what you're doing. And so you can work out for yourself why you can then go into that cycle of undercharging, underestimating, discounting, and over-servicing clients. So they are patterns of behavior. Move yourself out of price consciousness into value consciousness, and you can then set off a whole new way of operating. So the CV part of the equation, you're probably thinking, what does that mean now? Maybe you can even guess. It means communicating your value. But of course, if you don't understand your value, it means you can't possibly communicate your value to your clients. And this is important because don't make the assumption that your clients understand what the value is. You need to guide them into understanding that. And so you can ask for a client what it means to them when they have the problem that you're solving solved. What will it mean to them? How will it look for them? What will their life be like? What will their business be like? So you need to dig into that, not be scared to have conversations with clients about that aspect rather than just how you can solve the problem. So communicating your value is massively important, and also understanding the value from the client's perspective. And the third part of the equation is confident delivering fees. Now, this one is a biggie. And as I said early on, I was absolutely useless at this. But it is absolutely key. If you're not confident talking about your fees or your prices, what will happen is it will be obvious to the client or the prospect that you're not confident. So they will sense it, and then they will start trying to drive your prices down. But when you're confident, people don't like to query it. They honestly don't. And I've had this said to me. I had a couple of clients independently say to me, when I first had my meetings with them and I was discussing, or not discussing, but telling them what the fees would be towards the end of the meetings, they said I did it in such a lovely way that they felt really comfortable with it, and they didn't actually feel that they could even start bartering or anything with me, which of course is not what I want to be doing, because I do not do that. But that was evidence to me that because I was now confident and was able to deliver it in a way that wasn't aggressive, that didn't make people feel uncomfortable, and I wasn't apologetic either, because often people are apologizing practically for charging, then that meant people just accepted what my prices are or were. So the whole point about this charging stuff as well is that once you understand your value and you're confident about talking about your prices with your clients, they will feel much more confident in you, and they will reflect that back because they will tell you how much they value you. So do not be swayed into thinking, because we're going through this challenging time, that the only solution you have is to discount your prices, because all you're doing is driving prices down, not just for you, but also within your profession or your marketplace. And that's not helping anybody else. And actually, it's not even helping the economy either. It's much better for you to decide, this is what I know the solution is worth to the clients. Choose the clients who are the clients who will value that, and you'll get the results for them. Because to me, that's really, really important. I don't want to work with somebody if I don't have value for them and I can't help them get the results they want. And stand in your power and maintain that. Do not be scared and think, no, I've got to do what everybody else is doing and cut my prices. You know, at the beginning of lockdown, I've never cut my prices, just so you all know. But at the beginning of lockdown, I felt quite uncomfortable about my own subject. And I posted about that on LinkedIn quite recently. But as time went on, I realized that my job is to help people stay strong through this period of time, know who they are, know what they're worth, and be able to work with people who are happy to pay them. And I'm really fortunate that I have taken clients on all the way through lockdown, and they're all really good clients who are getting fantastic results. So I don't know how long this thing is going on with lockdown and COVID and all the rest of it, but stay in the present moment. Keep focused on what you can do within your business. Do not devalue yourself, and I will see you in question time.